Hello everybody, this is Jacob here, and today I'll be counting down my personal 5 things wrong with Romeo and Juliet. Shout out to Nick for helping edit this video. For number 5, I want to talk about a scene in the Romeo and Juliet play where Romeo gets some kind of poison from a poor, haggard, apothecary man on a donkey. Now, I have a question about this. Why does the guy have the poison with him in the first place? Seems like a very dangerous thing to have in general, especially if you coat it with your sword, which means like one slash kills everybody. And apparently the law allows people to carry a poison that could kill 20 men with one swipe. But he just can't sell it. Which means he could be in possession of it, he could give it away for free, he just can't sell it. So it seems kind of like the law also is in wrong, and allowing such a poison to exist and be able to carry around by anybody who wants it is kind of a weird thing. For number 4, I want to talk about something that happens right at the beginning of the entire play. This is a part of the play where somebody comes on that's called the chorus, that talks, not sings, and he says basically every single thing that's going to happen in major events, mostly, not talking about like Mercutio and Benvolio and Tybalt's death. I don't know what caused Shakespeare to cause this, what caused him to say, you know what, I'm going to add in someone to spoil the entire play for everybody. Maybe this was useful to say, if you don't enjoy this, if you don't think you're going to enjoy this and don't want to get deeper into the story, then you could just leave, which seems kind of pointless, because then the actors don't actually get to debut and everybody gets to see them and everybody can be like, they're amazing. So it kind of seems like one of the weirdest and worst spoilers, kind of like what happens if you spoil Star Wars. Nobody wants that, nobody wants to come to that sort of thing. And number 3, this one is dedicated to the father of Juliet, also known as Capulet. Now, I won't judge him for his intentions of marriage with his daughter, because he was one of the better parents back then, but the idea that he was suddenly changed from, I just kind of want her to just naturally go with it, and we won't talk about this again until 2 summers later, to, you better marry this guy in 2 days or else you're not going to be allowed in this house again. This was such an irrational decision in my idea, and such a sudden change that this is why he's on the list, and I think he's kind of crazy because of that. Like I said before, he did not want her to be forced to marry, and to have Paris, which was the one that wanted to marry her in the first place, win her over naturally and with exchange of vows, presents, gifts, and all that sort of stuff. But they also had to wait 2 summers before they could consider this offer again. But later on in the play, after Tybalt unfortunately dies, he decides, we need to have something happy, so let's force my daughter to marry Paris in 2 days, and if she doesn't allow this to happen, then she's going to be thrown out into the streets, and I don't care if she dies or not. His only daughter, he would be okay with throwing her out on the streets. This seems like such an irrational decision that he had to be put on this list. Speaking of marriage and forced marriage and all that kind of stuff, let's talk about Lady Capulet. This is probably not going to be a long one, so let's just cut to the chase and stop with all the intros. She's on this list because it seems like she's a very stereotypical perfect wife at that time. Not just because she's, I guess, beautiful at that time, but also because she's pretty mindless. Whenever agrees and goes along with everything her husband says and does. Like I said before, Capulet throws Juliet to the ground and starts yelling at her. She stands by and watches all this and kind of, I guess, takes it in. And whenever Juliet asks her for help, she throws her aside and says, your father just wants the best of you. Now, this still happens today, but this is still odd. Even back then, I bet you this never happened, and Lady Capulet, honestly, I think, did not like this at all, but she just believed that her husband knew what he was doing, although obviously he was not. So that's why she's on this list. Finally, with number 1, I just want to talk about the poetic form this poem takes. I'm not dissing Old Will that this was not a genius to write such a good story in such a poetic form. What I am dissing about him is about how confusing to read it is. Even if you knew all the words to this, I bet you it was still odd because, of course, this is poetry. All poetry you really can't hear first. and foremost without having to like go back into it, read into it, kind of like a lore is about a confusing game. It's so confusing. Even to our day, it's still confusing. We still don't know everything that they're saying completely and utterly. And even in the play, some of the characters sort of ironically talk about it, saying that they tell the other characters to stop talking in riddles, stop talking like in poetic form, and just cut to the chase and talk like a normal person would, which is what it is. And I bet you some people have told Mr. Will about this and said, you know what, let's make a joke about this in my next play. So no wonder Romeo and Juliet is so popular. It's not just because of the story, but also how confusing it is, and it's so easy to, I guess, like figure out how the old English people like to talk. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for some more videos that could be like this. Comment down below if you want me to analyze anything else. I'll go into more depth if I could, and it depends on whatever it is and how much I actually want to do it. Goodbye!